to prove it. And we can only support a supplement. It is not going to be proven for that it is going to improve. So the best thing is that having a good hydration, having a good sleep, and not to fear about it. And early diagnosis is one of the important aspects what we should look for, because there's no clear-cut indication saying that only this, you do this, you are done it. It's not like that. It is a mix and match. Like for example, somebody, the young individual who has an antibodies or fighting reaction in the body, he can give signs and symptoms like breathing difficulty or having a temperature high or having a heart rate high. But the people like children and the old people, or particularly who's having immune suppressants, like already on cancer treatment, and those people cannot have a signs and symptoms. We don't know. So that is the reason we should know that early diagnosis is important whenever you get a signs and symptoms of whether you get a cough or a tiredness or fever or attached to somebody like primary contact is there in the family. This is three ways. One, doing a rapid test. Rapid test is only 30%. Once the rapid test is positive, it is 100% positive. You don't have to go for further tests actually. So if the rapid test negative does not mean it is a negative. You have to go for RT-PCR. Even if it is RT-PCR, if RT-PCR is positive, it is positive. And if it is negative, it is not means 100% negative. It is 70% false positive. So, sorry, 30% false positive. That is the reason where we should look into that RT-PCR and rapid test. Now, third thing is that nowadays everybody is going for looking for CT scan. So you should not do CT scan immediately. You should do CT scan after 5th day or 7th day, because what happens is once you get a rapid test negative, once you get a RT-PCR negative, then okay, we will go for CT scan. Then you go for a CT scan, it becomes negative, you are in a danger position. Because after 3rd or 5th day only, the multiplication occurs. Maybe because this everyone of us knows with the knowledge of internet and WhatsApp, AC receptors are available particularly in the nose and the intestine and the lungs, which this replication and entry of that virus is happening. And with this, which will affect, it may not affect the lungs, it may affect the intestine, it may affect the nose and it goes to the brain. So that is the reason that you should do CT scan after 5th or 7th day if still signs and symptoms are having or not having, to confirm it. If you see the ground glass appearance in CT scan, then again you should look for the investigations. No investigation we have directly saying that in India, except some Pune research lab where you can really check the coronavirus. They have indirect markers. Okay, D-dimer is high, IL-6 is high, troponin high. All these things are indirect markers. There is no direct marker of COVID at all. So that's why these markers, these investigations are going to support you. And never think that these investigations of one time, one day is not going to give you any opinion or any diagnosis. It is a trend of investigations. Whether it is an increasing trend, whether a decreasing trend is going to make us to understand this is how we can diagnose corona. So early diagnosis of corona, early supporting of the organ support is going to make 90% to 99% survival rate without any comorbidities. Thank you.
Sir, now we would like to know about the third wave. You're hearing about children are most vulnerable on the third wave. Is it so, or it depends on the, like vaccinated people, non-vaccinated people, or it's going to be only the children?
Logistically, I can tell you one thing, because why this third wave pediatric has come, sir? Because what happened presently in India, because of the number of people, they have been told that the adults should be given vaccinated first, and particularly diseased patients, comorbid patients will be given vaccinated first, so that the people who are there, they are already vaccinated. Now, in the foreign countries or in India, actually we are following the other countries, whether whatever you call Italy, America, China. So what happens even now, you see the trend is not changing. When the first wave occurred, we are just like a flabbergasted. India won everything. We are excellently successful. We are not going to get the second wave. That was the impression we all had. We praised like anything. But what happened at the end after? Maybe we were a little late, that's all. Like our exams are postponed. Even the wave got postponed for another 2-3 months, that's all. But exams has to happen compulsory. The same way wave has happened, and many people we lost. Actually this time, we were well prepared compared to the previous time. The reason for the number of deaths more in this time was 3 reasons. Number one is denial mode. That means, okay, I'm not getting it. 90% of the people are not going to happen anything. Let us not go anywhere. We will treat ourselves. Number two, there is something called OTC. That means over-the-counter medication, which is available in India like rampant, like any other country which is not available. There's a disparity between foreign countries and India. In foreign countries, you cannot even get more than paracetamol, any medication from the pharmacy, because it's difficult. Whereas India, every medication you can get it from pharmacy, whether you call it as antibiotics or steroids or anything. So everybody, I don't say anything wrong. I actually look at the positive side. It is a good that every patient used to get the treatment. But the only problem was the treatment was correct or wrong was an issue. So when the treatment is correct or wrong, I don't want to debate say somebody is doing wrong, somebody is right. The maximum number of patients are getting benefited. That's most important. We should look at positively. So in this aspect, everybody is getting a medication of something, some sort of it, and everybody is being given support of it. Even the governments have really supported well. But at the same time, the most of the young people, they reach the hospital very late. What happens? 85 to 90% of the people will be silent, no problem. They'll develop antibodies themselves because of the exposure. They don't even show the signs and symptoms, at least 30 to 40% of the people. But whereas 5 to 10% of the people of population, because India is very highly thickly populated, so the number is going to be very high. This much number, they come to the hospital. I say some hospitals actually have some problems. Some people have taken more money. Some people have, we'll not discuss about that. We'll discuss about only the patient's treatment part. When you look at it, the patient's treatment were taken care by many hospitals in many ways, and it was good. But out of that, I'll tell you one thing, sir. Normally, it is 60 to 70% of the treatment is by the same human body immunity. We have a innate immunity. You have a external immunity. Whatever innate immunity you have, that actually reflects how it is going to react to the antibody antigen reaction of this virus. We have 3 types of infection. You have a viral infection, you have a bacterial infection, you have a fungal infection. Everybody is talking about now fungal infection, all these things we know about it. But at the same time, this is a viral infection. There is no role of antibiotic giving to the viral, because viral to be treated with antivirals. So the same way, most of the people will start giving antibiotics because safe side. Or somebody start giving more steroids, saying that it is okay, it's not going to happen any harm. Because whenever you give steroids more to the patients, the signs and symptoms are not shown visibly. That is where we miss it. We miss the boat there. That's another dangerous thing. So in that aspect, we miss the boat. The third aspect is that these people will come to where everybody available. Presently in a hospitals like a nursing homes or small hospitals, they don't send the patient to the higher, because I can tell you one simple way of looking at a human body. How you see, like for example, I am seeing you, you are seeing me. There's a lot of people getting treatment through the video, a lot of treatment getting from the video consultation, a lot of everybody by telephonic or WhatsApp, those kind of things are happening. What happens? How do you see each of us? A human body can be seen in 4 aspects. Number 1, I'll see you directly. How are you looking at? How physically you are fit? Are you able to speak? Are you able to talk? You have a breathing difficulty? You have any talking difficulty, walking difficulty? This is one way we look at it. The second thing, when I look at the patient, I look at the vitals. Like for example, what is your SpO2? What is your blood pressure? What is your temperature? What is your heart rate? And what is your ECG? What is your respiratory rate? All these things we see. When we see this one, we have to compare it. Like for example, sir, SpO2 98 RI, I'm fine. But they don't look at the heart rate is going from 80 to 130. These are the subtle things which only the specialist can understand how important it is relation between the SpO2 and heart rate. The third aspect is you look at the investigations, because human body is made of mainly 5 vital organs. These organs will give you a laboratory investigations of like kidney, how it is functioning. You have a kidney function test like urea, creatinine. You have a lung function like the SpO2 and the ABG. You have a heart function like troponin. You have a liver function test. So you have an organ function test. At the same time, what is it? See, when you see at COVID, this is a coronavirus disease of 19. It's actually highly procoagulant disease. Highly procoagulant, multi-system, immunological disease. This is the definition of the disease. So these are the 3 important components of the disease. So these 3 important components can be seen only when you look at these 4 things: human body, vitals, investigations of laboratory, and the radiological. So radiological is either with chest X-ray or CT scan and ultrasound. These are the things which you look. So when you look at all these four things, then you can see the patient is fine, good, you don't have any problem. So it doesn't mean that you have to do everything for everybody. There are certain signs where we can identify who has to come. If the patient is not improving, the patient is having a persistent fever more than 5 days, or in spite of Dolo or paracetamol not coming down, and his immunity levels are low, or his comorbid diseases. Like for example, one of the most important thing you have to remember is obesity. Obesity is one of the dangerous things because maximum disease, maximum things occurs for the obese people. So obesity, the next comes the diabetes, and next from the kidney disease, and these kind of people are very vulnerable. They can go to the serious condition. So these people should be taken care first. That's why we actually say prevent and protect. Prevent and protect means prevent the infection for these people and protect the elderly and pregnancy people. And when you come to the point of question, when you talk to me about pediatric wave, when these people are getting elders and the comorbid condition people, the next people who has to get is a pediatrics. So automatically the pediatrician. Now you have a whatever variant you call. You have a alpha, you have a gamma, you have a B delta. So presently alpha, but now they are talking about gamma. So this is a variant which is coming. Presently, to look at the variants, only 100 samples of each city has been collected and tested in Pune Research Center. You cannot do, you and I in any city cannot do this test of which one. We know a normal. Now again they say, if you take Covishield, you are more protected because lot of variants are covered. But if you take Pfizer, it is not covered with the gamma variant because anyway you will get infected. So this is how it is going to be. How the best way is that looking at antibody levels. How much antibody levels you have developed in your body, that will speak about whether you are being safe or not. And the people who got COVID already and treated themselves well by anywhere, and maybe another 6 months to 8 months, they won't get it back. So you should be taking all precautions to prevent this for further spread. And getting to the pediatric wave, yes, it's already in Bombay. You have a lot of cases have admitted because I am the part of APHI as well as I am the part of Corona team of our international countries people, I know it. That's why there's still trend going on. Whether it's going to come to Vizag or not, maybe I'm expecting somewhere between August 15th to September end, you may get a little bit heavy wave of the pediatric wave is my expectation.
Oh, thank you, sir. And there's a question here in the chat box, sir. What is your experience with monoclonal antibodies, cocktail effect?
Sir, you call about monoclonal antibiotics. This should be used only actually in mild cases. See, there's one thing called, don't think wrong this way, even though I promote it monoclonal antibiotics, but when you put a proper water with the belief, so it becomes tirtham. So like that here, monoclonal antibiotics, proven benefit is there only when you give it to the milder cases who have a comorbid conditions. Like for example, patient is a more than 65, 70 years old man. He is diabetic, hypertensive, and he got positive. And he becomes sick or not, we don't know. We need to wait. So why to wait for it? Why don't try this and see he may be coming down? This is one of the important things what we should look for. So the indication for the monoclonal antibodies is not for everybody. It is for high risk individuals, number one. Number two, very elderly with comorbidities. That's all. Not to give for everybody.
Sir, the CRP test also shows COVID, and what is the effect if it reports 164?
See, CRP. Even the CRP, it is not direct evidence of COVID at all. It is immunological reaction when you get the body. It can be there for infection, it can be there for inflammation, it can be there for whenever you have the viral markers are high. So what we look at now is when the patient is already admitted, treated for more than a week or so, after looking at when the trend is coming down CRP, we look at the indirect marker of the COVID for the discharge so that he doesn't have a further inflammation or infection. That's what we look at. So it is not that CRP rising one thing doesn't mean anything. Actually, when the patient is admitted in the hospital, we look at every third day of investigations with all the markers like D-dimer, IL-6, troponin, CRP, peripheral smear, toxic granules, procalcitonin, everything we look at. In that, that's one investigation which has a lot of importance, definitely. But to look at if you have a CRP is there raising, then we look at whether the procalcitonin is positive, whether the peripheral smear is having a toxicants, then to add antibiotics. Otherwise, only CRP is high, then we look at presently what is going on is a fungal infection. If the mucormycosis is there, CRP is very high, but all other parameters are normal, then patient is having a headache, then we look at endoscopy or look at MRI, then think about mucormycosis. That is the value of CRP.
Okay, sir. Another question is, what could be the reason for occurrence of black fungus in the second wave compared to the first wave? And the treatment protocol is almost the same in both ways, or more or less?
So treatment protocol, actually it is changing day by day. See, the day one we had actually, when the beginning of first wave came, we looked into 5 aspects. So looked into inflammatory markers, looked into the supporting immunity, and looked into the how to really stopping the replication of through remdesivir or antivirals, then looking at the support system. So now it is coming, people say, everybody start using different mechanisms like 1.5 vitamin C, Scorbix, then they start using a zinc of high doses. So different, now again they say, because the zinc and vitamin C will have an attachment with the iron, that is going to increase the mucormycosis, black fungus. So they said then to stop it. So it is nothing like that. It is mucormycosis chances are very high. That's called CAM. Actually, to remember, any patient who you are using a patients on steroids, they are having immunosuppression. When they have immunosuppressions, they are likely to get any infection which is possible, whether the fungal infection or the bacterial infection are high likely. Like a cancer patient's treatment, they should be very isolated and properly. The same way here, the chances of fungus infection is very high. So now we have burnt our fingers and hands and learned that we should not use more steroids.
But what is the role of 2-DG glucose?
Yeah. See, to tell you, I was a part of first study of 2-DG glucose, which was Reddy Labs and DRDO. So DRDO in combination with the Reddy Labs have studied, and they have studied in only a very less number of people with a time of 3 months. And there is a, please, if you read the PAL means the pharmaceutical information literature. So if you see the literature of that, it itself gives you 4 points. Number 1, it should not be given for CAD patients. Number 2, it should not be given for when the QT prolongation is high. Number 3, it should not be given when the severe ARDS is there. Number 4, when the patient is highly diabetic and HbA1c is more than 8.5, should not be given. These are the 4 things which should not give. And number 2, when they studied this into the study, they actually studied of the patients of moderate to severe cases. There was no study for milder cases. So the role of 2-DG, as said, it is reduced the outcome or mortality reduction is there. But with my experience, it yet to study for a milder cases and severe cases, particularly very difficult to get the cases like where the HbA1c is less than 8.5, where the QT prolongation is less than 0.03, and having the severe ARDS, because most of the patients admitted in the hospital is already crossing the CT scan score of more than 50 to 70. So indication comes not available there.
Another question is, what is the significance of CT values in an RT-PCR test? Also,
yeah, that's called cycle time. So what happens now? There is a difference between the cycle time of the patients to the when you RT-PCR positive comes. It is depends on the human being person to person. Actually, previously even ourselves, if RT-PCR is high, that means it is becoming positive in the 10th cycle, or it is becoming positive in the 42th cycle. Previously, the cycles were made only up to 24 because they used to cut off 24. That means automatically RT-PCR will comes negative because it is becoming positive after 24. You won't get positive. That was the previous problem. Now they made it up to 42. So even at the late of cycle, you may get positive once the cycle is been over. So it doesn't mean that what cycle it's become positive. The problem here is that people reaction. One person may be CT cycle of 24 positive. Another person may be CT cycle of 10 is positive. But this 10 is positive person may not replicate well, and later next 5 days he may become normal. He will not become from mild to moderate. Whereas the cycle of 24 may become a moderate to severe within 4 days. It all depends on the individual. There is no value. That's what I'm telling you. Any investigation does not have value in a single report. It has to be repeated. Actually speaking, if you do RT-PCR, we don't do after 7 days or 10 days. So unless you do again, you do not know what is going to be cycle time because the replication is increasing in the body or not knowing. We know depends on the individual. So it doesn't have any value in the case management.
Okay, sir. The next question is, what is your opinion on taking different COVID vaccines for the first and second dose?
Normally, I feel to take the same vaccine is better. Two reasons. Number one, if I give Covishield and it should be taken after 84 days, the second dose. Previously, for the doctors and all the people, they have given after 28 days. But after the study, after proven, that was a logistical problem. The government has been taking that. First, they want to vaccinate all the, particularly doctors and the nurses and the healthcare individuals. So that they are protected, they can treat many people, they can do well. So even though right or wrong, 28 days is the minimal gap which is required to have a proper antibodies developed in the body. So to develop, particularly for Covishield, it takes 8 weeks to 12 weeks. So for Covaxin, 28 days is enough. So you cannot mix the vaccine because Covaxin is 28 days, Covishield is 8 weeks to 12 weeks. How can you mix it? Because the antibodies formation become different. So better to take the same vaccine.
Thank you. Another question is, should we get an antibodies test done after getting vaccinated so that we are safe to go out?
There are two things here. Ourselves, because we were almost 40 doctors in our hospital, and we were taken all of us vaccine. Then after, for our closeness relationship with our lab people, we have tested antibodies. One person tested after 2 weeks, and again after 1 month, and after again I have myself has given plasma donation. So before giving donation, they will check our antibody levels, and if this only more than certain range, then only they'll take. Otherwise, it is not useful. Like that, one person develops very high antibiotics, one person does not develop antibiotics at all. There is a small catch here you need to understand. Getting antibodies 100, getting antibodies 300 means your inflammatory reaction to the person. But not getting antibodies, what does it mean? Actually, he is very immune to that virulence or virus. So that means that virus cannot affect that individual. Like for example, some doctors don't wear anything and go to the wards. Some doctors wear everything and go. People who are wear everything, by mistake they touch, they get infected. People who are not wearing, they are not getting infected. That means that virus is not affecting that human body. He is not making antigen antibody reaction to that. So when you look at the antibody levels, correct or not, we don't have the mechanism to test the antibodies in India except the Pune and Delhi, where the labs they can test the specific antibodies for this virus is available only in the research labs. It is not available outside. Only it is available is outside what antibody levels is there. Whether that's for the same strain or not, we don't know.
Right, sir. Next question is anything to do with the virulence virus for causing mucormycosis? Because during first wave also many of us use steroids.
Yeah. See, it is not the virulence of the disease. It is the doctors giving steroids. See, like we have with the fear of normally when do we give steroids? When the patient is becoming hypoxic, when the patient lungs are very much involved and patient is becoming sick. We thought maybe this is a cytokine storm patient is developing. We want to give more steroids and suppress the immune and make the patient happy or improve the system was our idea. In that idea, people have started giving a pulse therapy, like giving a 1 gram, giving a 500 milligrams. So, okay, give a little more dose. That was a trend of us. So, which is not known and which is not true, we know it now. So, that is the main reason why the mucormycosis or fungus, whatever developed. So, even if you see after first wave, there was a lot of ID specialists. We had a conference. So, along with the infectious disease specialist, actually, I was there, part of it only as a part of person. So the CAM is very common fungal like Candida, Aspergillosis and mucormycosis. These are the three things which actually develop for more patients other than other complications like retinal detachment, eye loss or avascular necrosis of femur. These were very, very heavy normal complications which myself have been noticed and we have treated for a few patients. So the mucormycosis is not because of the wave, it is not because of the severity, it is because of the immunosuppression.
Right. Next question is, what are the post-COVID complications that have newly seen in second wave rather than the first wave? and why?
Actually speaking, the complications of COVID is A to Z. There's nothing it is not there. Like for example, as the disease itself is a highly procoagulant, what happens? I have seen many of the people, our people, who are 20 years, 21 years young individuals coming with the chest pain because they are not tested COVID positive. They become a thrombotic and the thrombus, where the thrombus happens. See, in the blood is a clotting. When the blood is clotting, where it is going is important. If it is going to the brain and there is a posterior circulatory arrest will go. If it is going to the one area, the stroke will happen. If it is going to the lungs, there is a pulmonary embolism. If the small thing is going to the heart, it is going to be MI and the coronary thrombus happen. If it is going to the intestine, there is something called superior mesenteric artery thrombosis, SMA. The intestine will become gangrenous. That will happen. If it is going to the hand or limb, it becomes gangrenous and blockage of the artery. So this is what is important. I tell you, if you give me what is the one single most important medication for COVID, I only will tell it is a Clexane or Eliquis or Apixaban, any blood thinning agent. That's the only first and most important medication to be given for every individual. That will prevent sudden deaths, complications, all these things. So I, as somebody is asking, I 100% advise anticoagulants for every patient. That is going to save a lot of people.
Fine. Another question is, how long should we give blood thinners anticoagulants in moderate to severe COVID?
Normally, for blood thinners or anticoagulants, I give for 3 weeks post-discharge. Then I extend to the minimal level of ecosprin for 3 months.
Is it necessary to take multivitamin tablets and vitamin C every day?
Like for example, what are the vitamins? All vitamins are available in our food. If you have a proper food, why do you want to take vitamins? Like for example, if you go to we have in Hyderabad, NIN, you must be knowing, National Institute of Nutrition. That's NIN is institution available in Hyderabad and Usmania, where they can test all your nutrients in the body, which we are not able to do. No lab does anywhere in Visakhapatnam or Andhra Pradesh. So that testing is not possible for everybody. Like for example, you take a multiple or multivitamins or high dose. Is it going to get absorbed? No. Like for example, you want to take more calcium, you want to take more vitamins. Even if you take 1.5 grams, say you will take zinc of more, it is not going to absorb in the body. It is going to excrete. So that's why what you need, there's a every day daily intake of dietary protein. So you have certain levels of the body. Our human body of 70 kg body weight will take only this much. Even if you take more, it doesn't go. The same way, if you have a proper food, it is not going to have anything, no problem at all. So that's the reason you should not take multivitamins unless it's required. But you should not have a fear that because of zinc is more, calcium is more, chalcol or whatever you call it as a vitamin C, it is going to got mucormycosis. Not correct. It's because of you have immunosuppression. So you don't have to take for the people unnecessarily. But if you have a supplement can be taken, is better if you are not taking proper nutrition.
What is the maximum time of infectivity of COVID patient?
It is proven beyond doubt the infectivity of cross-infection is 10 days. Once you have been proven tested or you have a signs and symptoms, before testing also you can infect others, but it's only 10 days. After 10 days, the virulence comes down drastically and we prevent, actually the prevention of the patients asking us to do that is 100% is isolation for himself to prevent his infection, not for spreading others. So he can spread only within 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, he cannot spread to others. He or she cannot spread to others. Next
question is, virulence of COVID strain may be one more cause of emergence of black fungus.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. The issue is that whether virulence, it's not only virulence, it's a type of virulence which is coming and the body reaction to that. And it is not, that is not the main reason for mucor or any fungal infection. Fungal infections, your immune suppression. Once you are immune suppressed, you are used to get the fungus.
So the next question is COVID clots causing intestinal gangrene, stomach aches or newly running fatal. How should such instances be tracked and investigated?
Yeah, normally any patient is getting this problem. What we should do that we should do ABG and we should do CT scan or we should do ultrasound and look at the lactate level. These are the four things we can identify along with the signs and symptoms. That is easy for ER people to do that and they can identify and immediately early surgery is the best with the proper antibiotics or antifungals. Depends on the cause.
The next question is, what's your personal experience of convalescent plasma therapy, even though some health organizations are opposite?
See, there is a ICMR guidelines saying that there is no use of plasma at this point of time for two reasons. Number one reason, it is going to take from somebody of different strain, different person antibodies. It is not going to be full antibody levels. So that is the reason that when you give it to the persons or people, they actually got problem, whether it is called as a TRALI, that means transfusion induced lung injury. That's called TRALI. That may be the reason, or getting a reaction of the plasma to the patient because you are giving from somebody else to you plasma. So it may get reaction again problem. So these were the reasons ICMR actually removed and said that there is no use of plasma and they have removed. Please at the same time notice one thing. Below it has written, it is a discretion of the physicians. If you ask me, I would like to I wanted to study what is revisit of the plasma therapy because for my personal, whether you call it an anecdotal experience or you call it as the experience of mine, it is very positive because we have given more than 150 patients plasma. My personal opinion is that even whether you give plasma or not plasma, patient may improve. But giving plasma, the improvement become hasten up and instead of keeping high flow nasal oxygen for 5 days, I need to keep only 2.5 days. So that is the one benefit I got it from plasma. And I don't say that I don't advise now till I get a proper randomized control trial to prove it. But my personal experience is plasma from a particularly one or two blood banks where they take correct levels of antibody levels because antibody levels should be checked in the plasma available or not. I have checked actually. So only that plasma is useful. It is not convalescent plasma, it is a plasma therapy with antibody levels are high, is rarely beneficial.
Okay. Next question is, will you advise anticoagulant to every patient with COVID positive?
Normally, every patient COVID positive, I advise anticoagulants, at least tablet form, whether you call mild or moderate or severe. Depends if the patient is coming to the hospital and I normally subcutaneous Lexine I'll advise. And if they require it further and even the discharge also, I advise for 21 days. Whoever is positive, better to take to prevent the complication.
Okay, so next question is, can we take ecospirin every day? Heparin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. You are talking about ecospirin or heparin?
Ecospirin.
Yeah, ecospirin to be taken particularly for the people who are moderate to severe and they were having high D-diamonds in the hospital. They were having a score of CT scan severity score of involvement of the lung more than almost 70 to 80%. And I give them after stopping Apixaban for after 21 days, I give them for 3 months, daily 175 mg.
Okay. Another question related to this one is, heparin injections can replace ecospirin tablet.
See what happens, no, there is something called HIT. HIT means heparin-induced thrombocytopenia, which is a doctors, particularly critical care doctors or anesthesiologists or cardiologists will understand this. So it has its own problem. So suddenly falling of the platelets and complications. Whenever you give heparin, you need to monitor. You need to monitor the INR levels, platelet count. So that's the reason that normally I don't advise heparin.
Right, the next question is, steroids in post-COVID inflammatory syndrome?
Because yes, it is a known factor and has been proven. And normally that should be because some people actually get that and they have to take a long time for weaning because certain people when they get no, it takes at least a month or 1.5 months to wean off the steroids for them.
Next question is, antibodies, which method is good?
Actually, whatever we get antibodies is not directly related to that. Actually, I have spoken with the many pathologists and blood hematologists here in the city, and I found out from it is available only for specific antibody for COVID can be done only in the research lab in Pune, which they do. Nothing is done here. And just for our sake, protein antibody levels can be checked. If that's good, we are at least safe for 70 to 80%.
Next question. What precautions should a pregnant COVID positive woman take?
What precautions I should?
A pregnant COVID positive woman take?
Pregnant. There's no difference because there are two things here. What is important here in pregnant patients? Mother or child. But for me, it is mother is more important because she can bear again next child. You should not give importance to the child. Mother is more important, number one. Number two, already any pregnant means it is a procoagulant state. That means the blood thinning is little less. Already they can become more problematic. So that's the reason that you should keep it in mind. The protocols and the SOP, that means standard operating procedure, or CPGL, clinical practice guidelines for that is important. We have treated many pregnant patients and we actually ventilated the patients and extubated and they sent home. There's no much of a difference. We need to see close supportive organs and treating the patients with the protocol. That's all. And we should give Clexane, we should give Remdesivir. No contraindication. Everything should be given for the pregnant patient, depends on the severity.
Okay. The next question is how to treat post-COVID fatigue and body pain?
Yeah. See, it is, it's like, muscle breakdown, weakness, tiredness is very, very common, very, very usual complaint. I get it in post-COVID patients here. So there's nothing, it's just like there are two things here. One is a fatigue, second is a endurance. Because when I ask them actually, are you tired or are you weak? Because two are different aspects, different entities. When you have a muscle weakness, what you're able to not to do is a fatigue. But you are not able to do weakness because these things will happen only with a proper protein-rich food and proper exercise and breathing and deep breathing exercise. It takes 6 weeks to 8 weeks for him to come back to normal.
The next question is, should a lactating mother post-COVID who was not on any anticoagulant during active infection, is there any need to take anticoagulant? If so, please mention the suitable drug and duration.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Should a lactating mother post-COVID who was not on any anticoagulant duration active injection, is there any need to take anticoagulant? If so, mention the suitable drug and duration.
So I would like to really say that neither I am a pediatrician nor I am a neonatologist. For this, I request a neonatologist to answer this question because even if I say that, I should be evidence-based.
Yes, sir. The next question is for cesarean in a COVID patient. Points to be noted.
No problem. Do not be hurried because you don't have to get hurry for doing cesarean. You can wait for normal, complete the treatment of patients with COVID and go for the cesarean. Because when you give Clexane, nothing is going to happen. You can do normal procedure, normal cesarean, normal treatment. Nothing is going to happen. But not to be hurried and go for early cesarean. Should go for normal.
Next question is, anyhow after infection with COVID, there will be immunity for some months, on an average 10 months as per some studies.
True.
Why can't we wait for 10 months to vaccinate all infected patients to overcome short supply of vaccine?
See, what I want to tell is that what strain you got infected, you don't know. So the vaccine is beneficial for little more many strains. So that is why I advise, I suggest, I request, I appeal that with my experience, the people who got vaccinated never died if they have come early. So I request everyone to go for vaccine.
Another question is, young patients are dying because of heart attack. What is the way to detect happy hypoxia?
It is not, as I told you, the treatment of heart attack is blood thinning agents, whether you call it thrombolysis, whether you call it heparin, whether you do the surgery or whether you do the PTCA. The only way is early anticoagulation. That is why when you ask the previous question, Is every positive patient should take blood thinners? Yes. So that is the way you can prevent these heart attacks. And early identification, like for example, most of the hospital does not have a troponin test at all. Only few hospitals are having a troponin test. When you do the, like people are talking about COVID panel. So when we do all these investigations every 72 hours to know the trend, to understand the disease process, to know which organ is affected more. So that is why early identification, early whether you call apixaban or Clexane is going to prevent these heart attacks. If you see 1.5 years back, we actually got few patients with heart attack. Then they became positive when we want to take them to the cath lab. This was our own colleague sister who came to our hospital. It's like that. So the COVID presentation can be different methods, different ways. That is the reason when you go for it, you should look for the COVID positivity in all aspects and proceed.
Right. Next question is how to de-escalate oxygen requirements from NIV to HFNO and from HFNO to room air.
Yeah. So this is you're talking about HFNO. Normally, how do you escalate? That's more important. See, escalation is going to tell us about de-escalation. So escalation means whenever the patient work of breathing is increasing, when the patient axillary muscles are working heavily, when the patient severity score is CT is high, and the patient respiratory rate is very high, then we escalate from oxygen mask to the non-rebreathing mask to the HFNO. And if the HFNO is FiO is almost 80% and the flow rate is 60%, still the respiratory rate is high and the SpO2 is less than 94, then we go for NIV. The same way, when you put on NIV, normally there's two ways of it. You have a different modes have been tested and tried. The problem with NIV and HFNO, I'm little more proponents for the HFNO. The reason being, HFNO has a few positive things. Like number one, it has a humidification. Number two, it has a lot of temperature maintenance. It can control the oxygen percentage and it can has a flow rate of high, which can actually prevent the atelectasis of the lung. So this is the core benefits of the HFNO, even though it requires more of oxygen from the hospital side. But in NIV, it actually have a claustrophobic. In HFNO, you can eat well with the mouth. You can talk. You have a comfort levels for the patients. But whereas this, when you have this NIV, difficult. We need to give compulsory rice tube feeding, and he cannot really lie down prone because prone position is easy with HFNO than NIV. So that is the reason I normally prefer HFNO. And early HFNO coming down from NIV is the same method. If patient is comfortable, is able to do respiratory is coming down, SpO2 is going more than 94%. Anyway, we look at ABG as well. So then we come back to the HFNO. But HFNO also, you should not remove immediately. It should come down on FiO2 first to the maximum level, then come down on the flow, then go back to the mask or NRBM.
Right. Next question. Is there any chance to attack COVID multiple times?
I have seen people 2 times getting attacked. But only thing is, it is crossed more than 10 months. And as you said rightly, and again, if they have been vaccinated, no problem. They only will have signs and symptoms, they improve well. And people are saying that now, who has taken a Pfizer vaccine or who has taken a Moderna, and they still can get a Gamma strain. So yet to see.
So the people who are vaccinated now, do they need to get boosters after 9 months or 10 months?
Let the ICMR and virologists will speak on that, because there is a now, like for example, if I get infected with another strain, I automatically will get antibody levels and I will be normal. So you may not require that time, but people, as per the virologist, they say booster dose is beneficial. So we need to look for that.
Next question is, when and how you do procedure of thermobolysis in hide the timer values?
No, it's not. I think I read that thrombolysis in high dimer, D-dimer. So the thrombolysis in high D-dimer, particularly when the D-dimer is very high, I look at the patient whether the patient is having a pulmonary embolism or whether the patient is having a particularly pulmonary artery embolisms or PAH, and looking at the lung. I look at the 2D echo, I look at the CTPA, I look at the CT, then I look at the values of the treatment of INR platelets. then I look at the thrombolysis. That's what, when the thrombolysis is given, I keep cardiologist and look at the dose, whether it requires a procedure or thrombolysis. Then accordingly, I'll go for.
Right, so the next question is, the vaccine developed was related to one strain, but in recent wave, the strain got mutated. So how does the vaccine developed for the first strain becomes effective for the mutated strain?
It is not that mutation, as I think some of the WhatsApp, you must be heard about it. The mutation is going to be sometimes beneficial for us and damage for the virus. At the same time, it is not guaranteed. But what I can say that it is a maximum strains may be affected, not for all the people. So that is why whatever the maximum benefit we should look for. We should not look for individual strains. If it comes, we can get treated.
Next question, as the third wave hit wise, this question is answered. What's the role of heparin nebulization? Any suggestions and experiences, sir?
I don't have an experience of heparin nebulization. I have experience of adrenaline nebulization. Because when the patient is really hypoxic and having a spasm, I have seen many patients getting beneficial and improving the oxygen saturation by having a adrenal nebulization than heparin nebulization. I need to see some experts talking about it.
Yes, sir. Here, Dr. Vinay Babu wants to speak, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Vinay Babu from Rajendra, sir.
Hi.
Actually, my question was, my wife was attacked with COVID while she was a lactating mother. So, as she was lactating, she was not on any medications like Fabry, Calcium, or Remdesivir or anything. She just took some paracetamol and cold some cetirizine like that. Now, she is post-COVID. Based on your suggestion, should I start any anticoagulant therapy for her or not? If so, which drug is more suitable?
No, why do you want to give these drugs, sir?
As you are saying, for mild, moderate, severe, any patient you can give an anticoagulant.
No, what I mean is I normally give only Apixaban 2.3 mg BD for few days, that's all.
Yeah, Apixaban is not available in cities.
Okay, maybe you can request for it.
It must be 75 for every patient.
No, starting I give 150, then I go for 75.
For how many days duration?
The 10 days sufficient, sir.
After that, no therapy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask some more questions which is available there?
Yeah, there's one more question is from Kaul Kumar, sir. For how many months vaccine will work?
How many months?
This vaccine will work.
It's at least for 6 months to 10 months it works, sir.
Okay. There's one more question, sir. Role of budesonide nebulization.
Yeah, budesonide nebulization. Actually, everyone knows about, particularly pulmonologists knows that they actually given it. Now, I don't find, unless, we are giving steroids, again you are giving, this is going to be high. Normally, I don't find any benefit out of it separately. But other question, what they're asking about role of baricitinib, when to start and when to start antibiotics. As per the study, whoever is not taking steroids, or if the steroid is not supposed to be given, then you are supposed to give baricitinib. So there is no indication, no disease where the steroid is contraindicated. So there is no choice of not required actually. Now people are actually studied saying that when you give, it's like working for antivirals along with the remdesivir to reduce the replication of the virus. You give baricitinib along with remdesivir. Here's the thing people are actually giving. It's giving for a week or 10 days is sufficient. And you don't require any other antibiotics are required to do that.
Okay. There's one more question like IL-6 inhibitor is helpful to COVID patients.
I think the important question is before this. Sir, decision when to give Toci or Itolizumab.
Yes.
That is very important because it has become, the drug has become a black market. People have been purchased for 2 to 3 lakhs. I heard somebody. So which is actually dangerous. Actually, this is the drug which is the reason for, you call it about fungal infections. the patient is being taken tocilizumab, is very high likely that he'll become infected with fungus in future, at least 50% of the people. So normally when we have treated 4,000 to 5,000 people in last year, we have given only around 5 to 6 people. So indications are important. You need to identify whether the patient is within the time period. Normally the crux here is 7th day to 11th day. See how the people are missing. Actually what happens, patient gets fever and after a day or two, he'll become normal. Then he'll forget about it. Then after 7th day, he comes with the breathing difficulty and hypoxia. Automatically when you do the CT scan score, it is going to be 20 by 25. So that is the danger thing where we are missing. So if you know early catch-up is important, at the time, if the storm is there, at the time, if there is no infection like procalcitonin is normal, CRP is normal, only IL-6 is little high, no infection in peripheral layer, then he is a candidate for tocilizumab. So otherwise, no one is candidate for the tocilizumab. Coming to the question of IL-6 inhibitors is helpful in COVID patients. What we can see is that if you just see IL-6 can be increased not only in COVID, it can be inflammatory markers at the same time in infection. In infection, it goes in thousands. So that time it comes down automatically, disease comes down. Once the disease comes down, these investigations will come down. These are all not direct markers. So that's why it doesn't have a proper correct role. Normally when IL-6 high, even ourselves, we have given a lot of, you do the dialysis and you do the filtrations. There's something called, you do that with the dialysis machine, you filter the toxins. So that also to reduce IL-6. It may be reduced in the lab, but it is going to reflect the patient disease, not proven yet. I can't hear you.
Yes. Next question is role of ivermectin in COVID.
Role of ivermectin in COVID, because ivermectin was very well promoted and given. I myself have given for every patient for first 3 days to 5 days to prevent. Like particularly we used to give for previously every week we used to take HCQ for 4 to 5 weeks so to prevent the disease. All these things are really trial and error methods. So it is not proven that it's going to be any beneficial, but people give at least for first time to reduce and have a hope.
Okay, sir. Next question is from Dr. Kiran Kumar. We lost patients due to the tocilizumab with fungal infection.
I think that's not the question, that's the point.
Okay, fine, okay. Like from Mr. Kohal Kumar, feeding mother can take vaccine.
Yeah. It is said that it can be taken. That's what I got it information from other our colleagues.
Okay, sir. Okay. Next, from Kiran Kumar. Sir, you prefer dexamethasone or?
Normally to tell you, dexamethasone is sufficient. You don't need to give Solomedol. But people who are there in the hospital admitted and having the treatment IV cannula, so it can be given Solomedol. It's not an equivalent dose. You have to see equivalent doses.
Role of
No, I don't believe, and I don't give.
Okay, if anybody want to put some questions, they can raise your hand. If there are any questions from the participants, they can ask in the chat box or they can raise their hand. We can unmute.
Somebody, Alka Jaju, sorry. I'm not able to hear your voice is.
Yeah, namaste, sir. Thank you so much for all the information. So when is it safe for us to go out, like normalcy, comes back and with the mask and everything, how safe is it?
Now you can go out.
With the mask?
See, that's what I'm telling you. Actually, what government has done was lockdown was good. The problem is that I only said do everything with SMS. I told you social distancing and masks and regular sanitation is sufficient. So how long you're going to keep it at home? How long you're going to be inside? So I tell you that there's a lot of psychological support is required for everyone. We are social animals. We have to see, being a doctor, I can go around, but a common man, if he's being stuck at home, earning, living, lively, everything is going down. So what I feel is that everybody should be educated. go out, do everything and following the rules and regulations, and at the same time, early identification of the disease is sufficient to prevent. Because 95% of the people are not going to happen anything, but only 5% you identify early, diagnose early, treat early. That's all. Now I say, when you want to go out, you please come out now.
Sir, another thing is like suppose we go for walking. Should we wear a mask when somebody is coming near us? Or is it okay to do a morning walk without a mask?
Madam, I sincerely tell you, try to wear a mask all the time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So there is a question from Mr. Naresh Kumar. Oh, what is your prediction? How long this pandemic lasts?
Sir, now last year we got for 3 months and this year also we got for 3 months. Now we are going to get a depends. Is it for us or is it for entire world we are talking about? It is going from here and there. Like for example, last 6 months back, Maharashtra got heavily pandemic and in our area we got now last 2 months. So like that, it is not in the same place how it's going. Being a Bombay is a hub or financial capital of India, that is where it is starting. From there it is spreading. So it's the same like whether you call Delhi or Bombay, from there it's spreading. The people movement is carrying, like for example, if you do really proper identification, proper limitation of the people, proper finding out the test RT-PCR in the airports or in the railway station, which is not really possible in India because of the population and finances. If you do that, it will not spread anywhere because you are containing there itself. So the problem is the pandemic is not going to go at all at this point of time. It is going to go little like peak and coming down and going up. It's going to be like that for another few months at least. Now we should be taken care by ourselves and we have to see the peak and make available of the beds for most of the people.
There's one more question, sir. When to stop steroid in COVID patients?
Why do you want to give steroid first? Okay, talk about when do you stop is a question, but why do you want to give steroid? Like for example, I also do give, but when do I give? Like for example, the patient is become positive, he's having a cytokine storm, having a shivering and becoming hypoxia, then I start giving the maximum of maybe 60 mg, like 1 to 2 milligrams per kg is the maximum dose per day to be given, not more than that. And immediately I try to wean off. Within the 14 days, they will not be on steroids anymore. If at all they go home, they go on with the only 4 mg or go within 4-5 days because that is the where you are going to get infection high, inflammation suppression, and he'll become weakness because particularly most of the people become weak and tired because of the steroids.
Okay. There's one more question, sir. Is it essential to continue long-run antibiotics?
Normally, it is not antibiotics, sir. It is antifibrotic.
And
Normally, as a study, particularly there is a IFL, like interstitial fibrosis of lung or ILD. These are the diseases, and particularly cancer patients. They have been tried this antifibrotics, which is being shown benefit only after using for 3 to 4 months. There's no benefit is seen immediately. It has to take at least 3 to 4 months. Then only it is been seen benefit with the complications. So that's the reason that extremely damaged lungs also, antifibrotics are definitely useful, but I don't know how essential it is, but we are trying it for a benefit. We have given it for patients for 3 to 4 months. It is beneficial, then we stop it.
Okay, there's one more question. So surgical mask, they said is best, this is best, but we feel suffocated while we are out in the sun. Can we wear cloth masks then?
There are 5 types of masks are available. One is a one-side single breathing cloth mask. Second is a double layer cloth mask. You have a surgical mask. You have a N95 mask. You have a filter. So which mask will have one thing? Even when you have a double layered cloth mask, for the 2 people wearing is better so that you don't get infected, you don't give infection. The same way here, if you are being suffocated, I mean, it's not like that. Once you are accustomed and used to it over a period of time. So it is not really difficult at this point of wear masks.
Okay. There's one more question, sir. Please share your view on MSDHS plus protocol.
I would like to read the previous I would like to read your internet connection is unstable. Okay. See, I would like to read the previous question here. Vector technique vaccines and mRNA technique vaccines are safe in pregnancy than live attenuated vaccines as per studies. Government now allowing all type of vaccines, including Covaxin, to pregnant mothers. Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are safe in pregnant as they are having studies. So it is true. There is no debate on that. Coming to the next question is, please share your views on MITS plus, what is it? Or MSTHS plus protocol. No, I don't have much experience on that, and it is need to be have proven again further.
There's one more WhatsApp.
Sir, are you using a long-acting insulin in control sugars in patients along with rapid-acting insulin? Yes. What happens now here depends on the RBS levels. I normally, if the patient is non-diabetic, I check 2 times a day RBS compulsory because we are using somebody steroids, immunosuppressants, and when the patient is diabetic, compulsory we check 3 times. If the morning levels of sugars are coming more than 250, more than 2 times, I add long-acting insulin Lantus in the night time, start with 10 units. Then morning, afternoon, evening, 3 times we do RBS. Accordingly, I use particularly Actrapid or Novorapid.
There's one more question, sir. Sir, are you using long-acting insulin to control sugar?
Yeah, that is answered. I answered that question.
Okay.
I answered the same.
Okay. Sir, next, so any change in treatment plan for patients? Is there any specific protocol who have arrived after multiple hospital admissions?
No, I again look at it as a fresh patient and take the entire history, take entire treatment, what they have been taken, whether tocilizumab or whatever has been given, and again do all the investigations, including the CT scan and blood investigations, and follow it up.
There's one more question from Mr. Shrikant. As the treatment protocol keeps changing, is there any specific protocol identified for children?
There is actually Pediatric Society has been developed protocols. It has been there on the net, and that's what we follow.
There's one more question. What is your oral about high dose?
There's no role of high dose ascorbic acid. I don't believe it, and whether the patient is on oxygen or non-oxygen.
Okay. There's a hand raise from Mr. Kohal Kumar. You can ask your question. You can unmute and you can ask. And Srinivas Rao Garu, you can ask your question. You can unmute and you can ask him. And raise your hand.
Dr. Tirumala Prasad Garu, మీరు అడగొచ్చు.
So there's one more question. So it is advisable to stop antifibrotics after 6 months with no known comorbidity before COVID. The patient is still on low oxygen supply.
No, normally I have seen patients on HFNO for more than 9 months till now. I have been seeing that patient again. At the same time, I have seen patients with comorbidities and non-comorbidities. The patient is improving and patient's repeat CT scan is resolving. Patient oxygen, lung alveoli, there is no fibrotic changes, then we can stop.
Okay, are there any questions more? Srinivas Rao Garu, you raise your hand. You can unmute and you can ask. So మీరు మ్యూట్ లో ఉన్నారు.
సార్ గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్ సార్ సార్ డాక్టర్ శ్రీనివాస్ ఫ్రమ్ తిరుపతి. సార్ ఇప్పుడు పేషెంట్స్ ఆన్ ఎన్ఐవి లో ఉన్నప్పుడు ఓన్లీ ఆక్సిజన్ థెరపీకే ఇంపార్టెన్స్ ఇస్తున్నాం సార్. ఇప్పుడు 1 day to ఎన్ఐవి, 2 days ఎన్ఐవి, తర్వాత ఎన్ఐవి ఫెయిల్యూర్ కాకపోయినా కానీ వాడి మెడికల్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ ఎలా చేస్తున్నారు సార్ మీరు? జస్ట్ అదర్ దాన్ ఆక్సిజన్ థెరపీ.
సార్ మెడికల్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ ఓన్లీ ఫాస్ట్ ట్రాక్ బిఐడి సార్, అందులో తేడా ఏం లేదు. యాజ్ ఐసియూ స్పెషలిస్ట్ వీ లుక్ అట్ FASTBIDME, the simple literature or anybody should do for every patient. So పర్టికులర్ గా మీరు ఆయన కోమార్బిడిటీస్ ఏమున్నాయో థైరాయిడ్, ఆస్తమా, డయాబెటిక్, హైపర్టెన్సివ్, రొమటాలజీ, or is previously taking any medication, that has to be again continued along with investigation. Second thing is that every patient, normally what I do is that when the patient is on NIV, any ICU patient, we look at the feeding, whether he's doing calories are properly or not, and rice to feeding is going on properly or not, nutrition is proper, whether the bowel is opened or not opened. So with the motion passed. So A means whether what is the particularly analgesia. We all know that somebody having a medication having complications with the COVID, they died. So that's the reason when the patient is having analgesics already or not having analgesics. Patient has been taking and not taking. If he is taking old things, we should see. The third thing is sedation. What we miss is particularly older people or some people, they were used to taking Alprax, they were used to taking some depressive medication, which they keep them into the calm. The patient is sleeping well, the immunity is better. So if the patient was taking previously medication, we stop it, is dangerous. We should continue that sedation if was taking already. Otherwise, normally patient is on NIV, I prefer dexmedetomidine infusion for lighter place so that his anxiety levels are less. Then, as we know, T is thromboprophylaxis, whether we give it for Atlaxane, whether we give it for Apixaban. Then, monitoring and evaluation comes with the head and elevation. Normally, every patient of COVID patients, I don't look at head and elevation, I look at the prone position. When the patient is awake or HFNO or MASK or NRBM or NIV, I keep them on prone. Then, ulcer prophylaxis, most of the patients we give Pantap. Then one of the glucose control is the most important. Then we look for any invasive lines and antibiotic protocol. We have a antibiotic protocol for ICU, we follow it. This is what we follow. And the second important most for NIV is that whether we are giving a dry gas, it's dangerous. It becomes a lot of problem with the lips and tongue and the nasal problems will come. So for those people, we always ask to put the lip on and normally the peppermint lanti notlo esukoni chaparichmantanu. At the same time, I try to give humidification in the NIV because NIV ventilators, most of the ventilators does not have humidification. That's one important aspect I look for.
సార్ సెకండ్ థింగ్, ఒక పక్క సిఆర్పి పెరిగిపోతా ఉంటది, ఒక పక్క ఫెరిటిన్ పెరిగిపోతా ఉంటది, అండ్ పేషెంట్ మ్యాక్రోఫేజ్ యాక్టివేట్ సిండ్రోమ్ సైడ్ వెళ్ళిపోతూ ఉంటాడు. ఆ ఇమ్యూనో దాన్ని సప్రెస్ చేయడానికి ఎనీథింగ్స్ డ్రగ్స్ మీద ఏమైనా యూజ్ చేస్తున్నారు సార్?
సార్ మీరు సపోర్ట్ చేస్తే అది ఫస్ట్ నేను చూసేది ఏంటంటే ఎనీ టైమ్ వెన్ ద పేషెంట్ ఇస్ గెటింగ్ దిస్ ఇమీడియట్లీ ఐ లుక్ ఫర్ డైలీ ప్రోకాల్సిటోనిన్ along with the CRP, peripheral smear and look for these things. If those are being high, then I think about antibiotics. If those are not high, then only it is a macrophage, otherwise not macrophage. That is where we miss.
సరే సార్, బ్లడ్ కల్చర్ నెగిటివ్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత అంటే స్పోటమ్ కల్చర్, యూరిన్ కల్చర్ అన్ని నెగిటివ్ ఉన్నాయి, నార్మల్ ఉంది.
ఒక చిన్న విషయం, బ్లడ్ కల్చర్ స్పోటమ్ కల్చర్స్ నెగిటివ్ వచ్చేది 50%. ఎందుకంటే వెంటనే రావు నెగిటివ్ అవి. ఎందుకంటే మీరు బ్లడ్ కల్చర్ స్పోటమ్ కల్చర్ ఇచ్చేటప్పుడు మీకు వచ్చేటప్పటికి 24 to 48 hours పడుతుంది, రావు. మీకు ఇమీడియట్ గా వచ్చేది ఒకటే పెరిఫరల్ స్మియర్. పెరిఫరల్ స్మియర్ లో టాక్సిక్ గ్రాన్యూల్స్, బ్యాండ్ ఫార్మ్స్ కరెక్ట్ అర్లీ ఇండికేషన్. అవి కనుక కరెక్ట్ పెథాలజిస్ట్ చూస్తే మీకు కరెక్ట్ గా మీరు గెస్ చేయొచ్చు ఇది బ్యాక్టీరియా కాదా అనేది. అప్పుడు మనం తీసుకోవచ్చు సిఆర్పి and along with the procalcitonin and the peripheral smear. These are the things I look for. Then I think if these are not normal, these are normal, and the IL-6 is not very high, it's going to be below 100, 150, and CRP is high, then only I'll think about this macrophage syndrome. Otherwise, no.
Sir, this macrophage activated syndrome ఏమి ఇస్తారు సార్ మీరు?
మీరు అప్పుడు సెకండ్ స్ట్రామ్ లో వచ్చినప్పుడు అప్పుడు టోసిలిజమా ప్లాన్ చేస్తాం. దట్ షుడ్ బి అది 7th day to 11th day ఉంటే వస్తాయి, లేకపోతే రాదు మళ్ళీ.
Yes sir, yes sir.
Only between a 7th day to 11th day, having the inflammatory syndrome or having a storm with proving that normal procalcitonin and no toxic granules, only CRP rising and IL-6 is high, only think about tocilizumab.
ఎట్లా సార్ టోసిలిజుమాబ్ ఎట్లా ఇస్తున్నారు సార్?
I normally give only 400 mg.
4 milligrams. ఇప్పుడు హై డోస్ ఆఫ్ టోసిలిజుమాబ్
400 mg only once.
సార్ హై డోస్ ఆఫ్ టోసిలిజుమాబ్ ఎందుకంటే నాకు కేస్ కి వన్ ఫిజిషియన్ అడ్వైజ్డ్ 8 milligrams per kg బాడీ వెయిట్ 720 milligrams of tocilizumab ఇచ్చాడు. పేషెంట్ immediately deteriorated సార్. That might be the reason.
Maybe I don't want to comment on their knowledge or experience. What I would like to say is that our Indian population, our people, one dose is sufficient because second dose you get 10,000 of IL-6. There is no use. So better to give only one dose and leave it 400 mg. And if all these things are negative, only give, otherwise don't give.
Yes sir, yes sir. Sir, regarding baricitinib, when are you using sir?
అసలు బార్సిటినిబ్ రీసెంట్ వరకు నేను వాడలేదు సార్. అయితే ఏంటంటే మనం ఇప్పుడు స్టీరాయిడ్ కాంప్లికేషన్ చూసి then we thought why we'll avoid steroid. When you are giving remdesivir along with the baricitinib without anything, only for first few days, in the 5th day to 10th day, that's all. You don't require, sir, again.
So, okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
హలో హాయ్ సార్
Yeah.
సార్ నేను కోహల్ సార్ సార్ ఈ కంటిన్యూస్ గా మాస్క్ పెట్టుకోవడం వల్ల ఏమైనా బ్రీతింగ్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ వస్తాయా సార్ మధ్యలో?
మీరు కంటిన్యూస్ గా మాస్క్ సేమ్ మాస్క్ పెట్టుకుంటున్నారా, ఉతికి పెట్టుకుంటున్నారా, సర్జికల్ మాస్క్ పెట్టుకుంటున్నారా?
N95 మాస్క్ సార్, N95 మాస్క్ పెట్టుకోవడం.
అది కూడా కాదు, సేమ్ N95 మాస్క్ 4 రోజులు 10 రోజులు వాడుతున్నారా కంటిన్యూస్ గా అనేది పాయింట్ ఇక్కడ. ఎందుకంటే మాస్క్ కెన్ కాజ్ మ్యూకర్ ఫంగల్ ఇన్ఫెక్షన్. సో వై మాస్క్ విల్ కాజ్ మ్యూకర్ ఫంగల్ ఇన్ఫెక్షన్ అంటే ఏంటంటే అర్థం, మనం N95 మాస్క్ అనేది యాక్చువల్ గా అసలు ఫస్ట్ మనం ఆలోచిస్తే ఈ కరోనా వైరస్ అనేది ఎక్కడైనా ఉండొచ్చు, మన బట్టల మీద ఉండొచ్చు, మాస్క్ మీద ఉండొచ్చు. చాలా మంది మాస్క్ తీసుకొని గొంతు మీద పెట్టుకుంటారు, అంటే ఆ కరోనా వైరస్ ని మళ్ళీ ముక్కులో పెట్టుకుంటారు తెలియకుండా. సో దట్ ఈస్ వై వెన్ ఎవర్ వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ ఎ మాస్క్ we should remove it. You should not put it down, number 1. Number 2, NIV mask అనేది ఇప్పుడు ఈ కరోనా వైరస్ whatever is there, it is available living on the glass for 3 days, living on the skin for 3 days, living 12 to 24 hours on the cloth, and living on the sunlight for 20 minutes. So kabatti when you are wearing a N95 mask, you remove it, don't use next day, you use it after 5 days. The same N95 mask can be used. You should not use second day same mask. And the N95 mask should be, there is a technique in video how to wear the N95 mask, how to remove the N95 mask. When you are wearing N95 mask, you should cover the nose, number 1. Number 2, you should not touch outside, you should touch from here, and again you should not touch the hand inside the mask, and whichever is falling down should not keep it on the ground so that the ground should not touch it. Then there should be some can, like one cup, like anything. You put that into the paper cover of this N95 mask next day and remove it after 5 days and wear it so that you are not infected. That is the practice of using a mask again.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Sir, one more question from me. If hemoglobin percent is very low for mother feeding, baby feeding mother, what is the precautions she has to take for that?
First of all, I want to clear your mind that baby feeding mother will not have a less hemoglobin. Hemoglobin less is because of post-delivery, bleeding is more, or hemoglobin less because of menstruating women where they have a more menstruation, the bleeding is more, so hemoglobin less. So they should be given, first of all, particularly iron may be less. So you have to give iron supplementation, and at the same time, particularly for women, when they have a hemoglobin less, iron is less, they get infected more. So they should take more precautions.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There is another question from Dr. S. Kiran Kumar. Dr. Kiran, I have unmuted you, sir. You please ask your question directly to Dr. Kiran Kumar. Okay, fine. I'll read out his question, sir. Sir, if CT severity score is a guide of prognosis or morbidity of patient, but we see patients who recovering with high scores in ward itself. Is it not severity score? It's pneumonia involvement or GGO type involvement. Then simple CT severity score. Please explain, sir.
No. So it is actually severity score of CT scan means how much lung is involved. It is not how much disease has been there. You are seeing the CT scan of the lung. You are not seeing the body. I've been telling you this from the beginning. 4 points. When you look at the individual, you look at his physical status, his mental status, his conscious level, his activity, number 1. Number 2, you look at the investigations of all parameters. Then you look at his vitals, all the respiratory rate, temperature, all these things. Then you look at the radiological way. So whether you call it as a lung or ultrasound or CT scan. So MRI and this X-ray. So this is why I said the CT severity score is one, looking at the one side of the, not the 4 sides. only one side of the coin, I mean, not the coin have only two sides, but normally if you have 4 areas, only one side you are seeing. So one side does not reflect the severity of the disease. It reflects the severity of the lung involvement. So 25/25 involvement of the lung, so many people have been discharged. We have to mix and see other things like investigations and vitals, how he's been improving, and involvement is there, how he's reacting.
Right, sir. Next question is, when should we get tested for PCR or RAT post-COVID?
Why do you want to get tested once you are already positive? Only for knowing the positivity, you need to check immediately within 3 days or 5 days. But once you want to test it for, particularly you want to go to America or you want to go to abroad, you want to go to airport, you want to go to other state, they ask for the RT-PCR report, which should be done within 72 hours and shown it to them, it is negative. Otherwise, it doesn't have more value more than 72 hours of testing the RT-PCR.
So the next question is, sir, please elaborate the role of oral hyperglycemic agents in the management of post-COVID steroid-induced hyperglycemia.
There is what we need to look at is whenever the patient gets, there are certain people who are pre-diabetic or becoming diabetics after COVID because of using a steroid. Whether you need to see, is he on hyperglycemia just because he has been used steroid or he has become diabetic? That can be seen by 2 methods. One by looking at the HbA1c, second by looking at the insulin resistance. If you see the insulin resistance levels, then you will come to know what is the level. If those are normal, then he may not require any treatment further. He may require to change it to immediately to the normal diet control itself is sufficient. If still HbA1c is very high, then insulin resistance are there, then you have to think about giving to the whether oral hypoglycemic agents, depends on the mix and match, or again 3 levels of treatment is there where diabetics are better to treat.
Right, so the next question, what's the protocol of your hospital in view of disinfecting flow meters, jars, and how frequently change oxygen sets?
Yeah. Normally, every one patient, once the oxygen flow meter is there, we remove, we send it for ETO, then put back to the patient. That's a better standard method. Sometimes everybody misses.
Okay, the next question,
It's a responsibility of the intensivist or the in charge of the doctor to make it happen.
Right, so next one, happy hypoxia is covered, I think.
Happy hypoxia is not covered. Actually, what I will tell you is that happy hypoxia is a real, I have seen it myself for many people. It is actually dangerous sometimes because we miss it. And this is the reason when the patient gets positive, in the milder time, you do the 6-minute walk test. When the 6-minute walk test is done, after 6-minute walk, if the SpO2 is falling down more than 4%, that means you should be careful. And please note, today morning only I was talking to my colleague, if the patient is died also, you put a SpO2, it shows 96% of SpO2. So it has to be seen clearly with the condition, person and the equipment, because equipment is not foolproof. You have to check again whether the equipment is working properly or not working.
Okay, so the next question, indications for thermolytic therapy in pulmonary thermoembolism in COVID cases. Dr. Vishnumurthy.
See, there's a pulmonary thromboembolism. There's a very clear guidelines are there, whether the COVID or non-COVID, the treatment guidelines are same. There's no difference. Yeah, cloth mask can be used after washing.
Yeah.
Normally, when the patient is comfortable, our 14th day CRP is 50. You have to look with, again, other things, whether the procalcitonin and peripheral smear is normal or not normal, then go for further, Dr. Vishnumurthy.
Right, sir.
I think Dr. Trimal Prasad is not asking any questions.
Right, sir. I think you covered very patiently, sir. All the questions you've been answered with great patience level, and I'm sure we, EMA and APCA, the Event Management Association and AP State Association, we definitely we learnt a lot on this session, sir. And I'm sure these things.
2 points at the end of it.
Okay, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Number one, please, any signs and symptoms, get tested early. Because number two, there should not be any fear, because COVID is just only the 14 days disease. And please do not have any denial. And the most important thing is, don't think that you got a fever and come down within 2 days and come back with a severe disease. Our 7th to 11th day is a dangerous disease. We have seen many of known people have expired. Be careful. That's all I can say.
That's it.